Growing up, I always knew my sister Amanda was the favorite. She was the golden child. Beautiful, talented, straight A's, always the center of attention. And me? I was just Kate. The quiet one, the bookworm, the girl who didn't make waves. But I never resented Amanda. Not really. She was my sister, and I figured that love and fairness would even things out eventually. I was wrong. My parents were successful real estate developers. They built an empire from the ground up and always reminded us of their sacrifices. We worked for everything we have, my dad would say. So one day, you girls won't have to. Well, that one day finally came when they sold off a big portion of their properties. It was a huge deal, life-changing. And then they sat us both down at a fancy dinner to make an announcement. Amanda was glowing in a designer dress. I had rushed from work, still in my slacks and flats, barely making it in time. "Girls," Dad said, lifting his wine glass, "we've decided to gift Amanda a $10 million share of the sale." I blinked, stunned. "And for you, Katie," Mom added, turning to me, "we've set up a small investment account, but we think it's important you continue to build your life independently. You've always been so resilient." Resilient? It felt like a slap. Amanda got $10 million for being the star, and I got, what? A few thousand and a pat on the back? I tried to stay composed. "So, I'm just supposed to figure it out on my own?" Mom nodded. "You're smart. You've always been resourceful. Amanda will be helping the family legacy in other ways." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had put myself through college with scholarships and side jobs. I was working 2 part-time gigs just to stay afloat, while Amanda hadn't worked a day in her life. That night, I went home and cried harder than I had in years. But something inside me shifted. If they didn't believe in me, I would prove them wrong. Not just to get even, but to remind myself of my worth. That was the moment I decided. I would earn more than $10 million, and I'd do it without their help. No handouts, no shortcuts, just grit, focus, and a fire they didn't think I had. And that was the beginning. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a resolve I hadn't felt in years. My parents' message was clear. I wasn't enough. Not for their legacy, not for their pride, but I could change that. I didn't have millions in my bank account like Amanda, but I had something she didn't: purpose. I pulled out my laptop and looked at my resume. It was decent. Bachelor's in business, years of admin work, some freelance consulting here and there, but nothing that screamed $1 million future. Still, I had ideas. I'd always been fascinated by online business models, drop shipping, e-commerce, digital marketing. In college, I once helped a friend launch a handmade jewelry brand that gained traction online. I did it for free, just because I enjoyed it. Now I was going to do it for myself. That week, I cut down my hours at the coffee shop and used every free moment to research. I watched videos, read case studies, took free courses. At night, while Amanda posted champagne brunches and yacht selfies, I stayed up until 3 a.m. building my first Shopify store. It wasn't glamorous. I worked out of my tiny apartment, surrounded by sticky notes and empty coffee cups. I didn't have a startup fund. I was using my savings, carefully stretching every dollar. And I failed, a lot. My first product, a smart water bottle, was a total flop. I lost $600 in Facebook ads and barely made 3 sales. I was devastated, but instead of quitting, I treated it like a business school class I couldn't afford to take. I studied what I did wrong and tried again. My second store did a little better, then a little more. I was learning how to talk to customers, how to build trust, how to market a brand. I was also learning how to fail faster and smarter. Months passed. My parents barely checked in. Amanda was now influencing full-time, posing in designer outfits while promoting luxury hotels she never paid for. She posted a picture once of her new beach house and tagged our parents, thanking them for helping her make her dreams come true. I didn't like the post, but I screenshot it. It became my lock screen, a reminder of what I was working for and what I would earn on my own terms. 1 year later, things changed. My third store, Custom Sustainable Planners, went viral on TikTok. A small video I made blew up overnight. Orders poured in. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I had to call in friends just to help me pack and ship everything. The momentum didn't stop. I reinvested everything back into the business, hired a small team, and scaled like crazy. Within 6 months, we crossed $1.3 million in revenue. And the best part? It was all mine. No handouts, no family name, no trust fund, just me. That's when the emails started coming, first from my mom. Hi, sweetheart. I saw an article about your business. So proud of you. Let's catch up soon, okay? Love, Mom. Then from Dad. Looks like you've been busy. Maybe you could come by for dinner sometime. We'd love to hear more. And eventually from Amanda. OMG, you're doing so well. Maybe you could help me revamp my brand? I'd pay, of course. That last one made me laugh. She had $10 million, I had drive. Turns out mine went further. But I didn't respond. Not yet, because I wasn't done building. Not by a long shot. And they hadn't earned a seat at my table. Not anymore. When the first magazine article came out, I wasn't prepared for the flood of attention. Local woman builds $1 million brand from small apartment. That was the headline. Catchy, inspiring. But to me, it was more than a headline. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't the family disappointment, that I didn't need anyone's permission to be successful. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to me. I was invited to speak at small business panels. Podcasts started calling. I got offers from venture capitalists. For a while, I was riding a wave I'd never imagined I'd reach. But with every high came the inevitable shadows. The first shadow came in the form of my parents' sudden interest. My dad called. So, this whole business thing, you're really doing it, huh? I could hear the pride he was trying to suppress. I could also hear something else. Opportunity. We were thinking, he continued, maybe you'd want to come to the next family fundraiser? Amanda will be there. It'd be great for you two to reconnect, network a little. Ah, yes, network. The polite way of saying, now that you're valuable, we'd like to reattach the family name. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. The second shadow was Amanda. She showed up at one of my pop-up events dressed in head-to-toe designer with a big smile and a camera crew for her Instagram. Sis, so proud of you. I've been following your journey. The camera turned to me and I forced a smile. Thanks, Amanda. You look inexpensive. She laughed, probably thinking I meant it as a compliment. We made small talk, but I could tell she had an angle. She kept asking about margins, growth, audience retention. Then came the big ask. So, I've been thinking of launching a lifestyle brand. Maybe you could mentor me, or better, we could collaborate. Build something together? I paused. This was the same sister who once laughed when I couldn't afford to go on the family cruise. The same one who got a $10 million gift and still mocked me for working weekends. Now she wanted my time, my strategy, my credibility. I'll think about it, I said, already knowing the answer. I wasn't cruel, but I wasn't stupid. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, still small, but filled with warmth and purpose, and stared at the vision board I'd created when I first started. On it were 5 words: earn it, own it, keep it. I had built something real, something mine, and I wasn't going to let anyone, especially my family, leech off of it now that it was thriving. A few weeks later, my parents hosted a gala. They asked me, begged me really, to attend. The whole family will be there, Mom said. It's important. Part of me wanted to say no, but a deeper part, the part still craving closure, said yes. I wore a simple tailored black dress, not designer, but custom made by a local artist I'd met through my business. I walked into that gala with my head held high, not to prove anything, but because I had nothing left to hide. Amanda was already there, draped in diamonds, surrounded by influencers. My parents stood near the front, smiling at donors, whispering about our daughter's company, like they'd had anything to do with it. And then something strange happened. The event's MC, an old family friend, got on stage. Tonight, we're honored to celebrate an extraordinary woman. She's built a 7-figure business from scratch, inspired thousands, and redefined what it means to be self-made. I froze. They were talking about me. I hadn't been told. I hadn't agreed. My mother looked at me from across the room, giving that tight-lipped smile I knew too well. It said, "See? We're proud now. You can stop resenting us. But pride without apology meant nothing. When I walked on stage, I took the mic, thanked the MC, and looked out at the sea of polished faces. Some familiar, most fake. Thank you, I said, for the recognition. But let me clarify something. I didn't get here because of this family. I got here in spite of it. There was a collective inhale. When I started, no one offered to help. My parents gave my sister $10 million. They told me to figure it out myself. And I did. Every lesson, every failure, every late night, I earned it on my own. I paused, letting the weight settle. So yes, I'm grateful for the journey, but not because of who supported me, because of who didn't. Sometimes being underestimated is the greatest gift of all. And with that, I stepped off the stage. The applause was hesitant, then louder. I didn't look back, because that was the night I let go of the need to be seen by people who never really saw me. That was the night I realized I didn't need their table. I had already built my own. After the gala, I didn't speak to my parents for weeks. They didn't call. They didn't write. They didn't even comment on the speech. But I knew they heard it. I knew they felt it. And honestly, that was enough for me. I had said my piece not for their sake, but for mine. For the version of me that once cried herself to sleep in a cramped dorm room, wondering why she wasn't good enough. For the girl who watched her sister get handed luxury while she was handed lectures about grit. And now, that grit had turned to gold. Business was booming. My online platform hit over 1 million subscribers. I launched a mentorship program for young women starting out in business. We held workshops, gave out micro grants, partnered with community colleges. Every email I received, from a single mom starting a candle brand to a teenager designing eco-friendly jewelry, reminded me that success isn't about who gives you a head start. It's about who refuses to stop running. And then one morning, an unexpected email popped up. Subject line, coffee, from Amanda. I stared at the screen, half expecting it to be some PR stunt or a request for another collab. But the message was short. Hey, I know we haven't talked, but I'd like to meet. Just coffee, no cameras, no business, just sister stuff, if that's still allowed. Part of me wanted to delete it. Another part, the one that still remembered late-night sister talks before everything got complicated, clicked reply. We met at a small cafe downtown. I chose the place on purpose. Quiet, low-key, the kind of place I doubted Amanda had ever stepped foot in. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. No designer gown, no entourage, just jeans, a cardigan, and tired eyes. Hey, she said quietly. Thanks for coming. You look different, I said. She half smiled. Yeah, I get that a lot lately. We ordered coffee. She didn't film it. For a few minutes, we talked like strangers forced into small talk. Then she sighed and looked me in the eye. I messed up. I didn't respond. I let her keep going. Back then, when Mom and Dad gave me that money, I didn't question it. I thought I deserved it. I thought I was supposed to be the one who made it. But you didn't, I said evenly. No, she admitted, I didn't. Amanda stared at her hands. Her voice cracked a little. I lost most of it. Bad investments, PR campaigns, hiring influencers instead of actual staff. And I was too proud to ask for help until it was too late. That surprised me. She continued. Then you built something real, something people actually care about. I was jealous, but more than that, I was ashamed. Ashamed? I asked. She nodded. Because I realized that everything I was handed, I wasted. And everything you weren't handed, you turned into power. There was a silence between us, the kind that only exists between people who once knew each other well. So why reach out now? I asked gently. Amanda looked at me. Her eyes glistened. Because I want to rebuild, not my brand, myself. And then she said something I never thought I'd hear. I want to do it the hard way, like you did. For the first time in years, I saw not the golden girl, not the entitled heiress. I saw my sister, not the one molded by our parents' favoritism, but the one who used to braid my hair and sneak me extra marshmallows when Mom wasn't looking. We talked for hours that day. She asked me questions not about strategy or numbers, but about resilience. I told her the truth, that the hardest part of starting from nothing is believing you're worth something, that the voice in your head is often your worst critic. That rejection doesn't sting as much once you realize it doesn't define you. We didn't solve everything that day. Years of pain don't disappear over a single coffee, but it was a start. And then a week later, something even more unexpected happened. My dad called. "Your mother and we saw the article in Forbes," he said, clearing his throat. "You know, we didn't handle things well. Back then, with you." I held my breath. "We're proud of you," he said, even if we didn't say it when it mattered. That's when I realized something strange. I wasn't waiting for their apology anymore. I had already moved on, but hearing it, it still meant something. Not because I needed their approval, but because I had learned to live without it. Because now I had something far more valuable. Peace. After that conversation with Amanda, something shifted, not just between us, but within me. For years, I'd carried this quiet resentment. I masked it with ambition, buried it beneath achievements. But hearing Amanda admit her mistakes and my father acknowledging mine, it loosened something I hadn't even realized was clenched. Still, healing isn't a straight line. A few weeks later, I got an invitation, a formal one with raised ink and elegant script. Celebrating Amanda's new venture, join us for an evening of innovation and redemption. I blinked. At the bottom, in Amanda's handwriting, was a note. "I'm doing this without glitz. No money I didn't earn. I want you there, not as a guest of honor, but as my sister." I'll admit, I hesitated. What if it was another PR stunt? Another show for cameras and press? But curiosity and maybe hope got the better of me. When I arrived at the venue, I was stunned. It wasn't a hotel ballroom or a luxury rooftop. It was a local community center, the kind I had spoken at dozens of times during my own rise. There were folding chairs, simple lights, and a modest stage. Amanda stood at the front, not in a designer gown, but in a clean pressed blouse and slacks. Her hair was pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked real, and her speech, not polished, not rehearsed, but raw, honest, and humble. I used to think success meant spotlight, applause, numbers. I had all that, but I lost myself. What I never realized was that the real success stories are built in quiet moments, in failure, in getting back up, in choosing the hard road. My sister taught me that, she said, turning slightly toward where I sat. Every eye followed hers. My throat tightened. She didn't just build a business. She built impact. She changed lives, including mine. After the applause died down, Amanda introduced her project, a social venture supporting young women recovering from financial abuse and economic inequality. It was good, not perfect. There were flaws in the structure, the funding model was shaky, but the intention was right, and she wasn't doing it alone. She had a team, diverse, passionate, and driven. Afterward, we found ourselves standing outside in the crisp night air. "Well?" she asked, chewing on her lip. "You're serious about this?" I asked. "More serious than I've ever been." She nodded. I paused. "Then let's talk partnerships, not family handouts, not branding, real mentorship." Amanda blinked. "You'd help me? After everything?" "I'm not helping you," I said. "I'm investing in something that matters, just like you are." That night, we outlined a collaboration, one where she'd run programming through her platform while my foundation offered infrastructure and accountability. It wasn't forgiveness, it was forward motion. In the weeks that followed, we met regularly, sometimes over coffee, sometimes late-night Zooms. And while we built the venture, we rebuilt something else: sisterhood. One evening, while reviewing some grant proposals, Amanda looked up and said, "I think Mom's jealous." I laughed. "Of what?" "Of us, of what we've built. She keeps asking questions about the foundation now. She even asked me if I think she could help with fundraising." "What did you say?" Amanda smirked. "I said she'd have to start with a volunteer application." We both burst into laughter. It was the first time in a long time that our laughter wasn't forced or polite. It was real, but the biggest surprise came a month later. We were finalizing a grant award ceremony when I got a call from my father. "There's something you should know," he said, his voice tight. "Your grandfather left a second will. It was sealed, delayed by a clause that said it would only be opened if both his granddaughters launched independent ventures by their own merit." I froze. Wait, what? Apparently, he never believed in easy inheritances. He believed in legacy, work, integrity. The lawyer said, "You and Amanda, you've both met the terms. He wants to honor that." "And what did he leave?" I asked cautiously. "Control of the family trust, not the money," he said. "The power to direct it. Together." I sat in silence. After all these years, it wasn't about the $10 million Amanda received. It was about what we did after. It was about what we built, not what we were given. That night, Amanda and I sat across from each other again, sipping tea. "So," she asked, "you ready to manage a legacy together?" I looked at her, really looked at her. Not as the sister who once got everything, but as the woman who finally earned something that mattered. "Yeah," I said, "let's make it count." 6 months after the surprise reading of Grandpa's second will, Amanda and I found ourselves sitting at the long oak conference table inside the family trust office. Just the two of us, with the weight of generations behind us and the promise of something better ahead. We were co-directors now, not co-heirs, not competitors, co-builders of a legacy. It wasn't easy. Every decision we made was scrutinized, not just by family but by outsiders too. Reporters, former board members, and even a few nosy relatives came out of the woodwork once they heard we were the ones holding the reins. The irony. Suddenly, the very people who used to whisper behind my back, calling me the less impressive daughter, were now asking for introductions, partnerships, and grants. But I wasn't doing this for them. Neither was Amanda. One of our first acts as co-directors was to shift $2 million of discretionary funds to create a scholarship program for low-income students in rural and urban areas, especially those pursuing community-focused careers like education, social work, and nursing. Amanda pitched the idea. I structured it, and together, we launched it. We called it the Second Wind Initiative, because that's what this was, a second chance. For us, for the legacy, for the people we'd once been. The media caught wind of it, and overnight, headlines shifted. From feud to force, two sisters rewrite the family legacy. Second Wind Initiative aims to support overlooked students nationwide. Heirs choose purpose over profit, a new era for the Thompson Trust. Grandpa would have been proud. I could feel it, but not everyone was thrilled. My parents, especially my mother, kept their distance. I think the fact that Amanda and I didn't need their approval anymore scared them more than anything. Mom tried to reach out once, through a mutual family friend. She sent a letter, handwritten surprisingly. It was vague, full of passive regret, half-hearted praise, and a familiar undertone of control. "I always knew you had potential. I just wanted what was best for you. Maybe now that you've proved yourself, we can have a proper family dinner again." I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because I no longer needed validation from people who had once dismissed me for daring to want more than they could imagine. Instead, I focused on what we were building. Amanda, to her credit, never stopped trying to make peace. She visited our parents a few times, sometimes came back disappointed, other times quietly reflective. "I think they loved us the only way they knew how," she said one night over coffee. "But they never learned how to listen." I nodded. That's why we're here, to do it differently. In late spring, we hosted the first annual Second Wind Gala. Not a luxury event. No champagne fountains, no tuxedos, just stories. From kids who had earned their first college acceptance letters. From single mothers getting back on their feet. From teachers building new programs with the grants we'd provided. And during the closing speech, Amanda stood beside me as I looked out over the audience and said, "Success isn't something you inherit. It's something you create. And the most powerful legacies are the ones that lift others, not just ourselves." The room erupted in applause, but it wasn't just about the claps or headlines anymore. It was about peace, a kind of peace I never thought I'd feel, not by winning a fight, but by transforming it. That night, Amanda and I stepped outside into the cool breeze. She smiled, eyes misty. "Thank you," she said softly, "for giving me a second chance." I looked at her, really looked at her. "Thank you for taking it." We stood in silence for a while, watching as the last of the guests trickled out, their arms full of hope and possibility. And for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift. I wasn't the overlooked daughter anymore. I wasn't the bitter one. I was me, fully seen, fully heard, and fully in charge of my future. Because while my parents gave my sister $10 million, I built something worth more than money.